everyone says about the dying sedans, the skyrocketing crossover sales, sedans aren't really dead. Only the crappy sedans are really dead. So if you look at the rest of the sedan market, especially when you look at the full-size luxury sedan market, there's a lot of truly excellent cars. For example, the car that I'm sitting in right now is the Lexus LS500 F Sport with all-wheel drive. With the F Sport package, with all-wheel drive, with the 20-inch wheels, and Mark Levinson's 23 speaker system, this car dials in at just a little over $88,000. How's it going, everyone? Welcome to Shifting Lanes. My name is Hanson. Thank you so much for tuning in. And for this video, I want to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of Lexus's new flagship sedan. Let's first start off with the good. The Lexus LS has been around for decades, and they're known for reliability, being the flagship of the Lexus lineup. And for the 2018 version, the Lexus LS lives up to its name. First of all, the build quality is solid, and there's a lot of attention to detail in here. There's great material selection all the way from the materials on the dash, the Alcantara on this A-pillar, the switchgear, to the door handles, down to the knurling on this handle plate, whatever you want to call this. The material selection is amazing. There's a lot of little touches that make this car very unique and very special. Just like the LC500 Coupe, the LS500 has a digital gauge cluster that moves to the left and right. Yeah, it sounds a little gimmicky because, to be honest, who needs a gauge cluster that can move? But in reality, it's very functional. And when you move it from the left and right, you get a lot more information, such as the boost gauge, the G meter, or what gear I'm in. I could slide the gauge cluster to the right and I get more information on the left-hand side of the screen. More along the build quality, the engineers have worked really hard to iron out the NVH issues in this car. There's so much sound deadening material in here that you won't really hear much of the outside world. And if you're not careful, you'll blast past 80 miles per hour in this thing. Which brings me to my next point. The engine is lovely. The LS500 has a 3.5-liter twin-turbo V6. A lot of you may lament the disappearance of the V8 from the LS lineup, but don't worry, because this V6 twin-turbo is pretty amazing. It makes 416 horsepower and 442 pound-feet of torque. This is really middle-of-the-road performance compared to the rest of the field, like the BMW 7 Series, the Audi A8, the Mercedes-Benz S-Class. There's a long and distinguished list which has a lot more power. But to be honest with you, 416 horsepower will make 5,000 pounds feel like nothing. This does feel like a sports car when you want it to. Now, another reason why this engine is nice is because it has the D4S system. That just means that it has both port and direct injection. So it has the benefits of direct injection, which means that you'll get a lot more torque and better efficiency, while also having the reliability and cleanliness of port injection. The other nice thing about this engine is also the engine note. That is if you could suspend your disbelief for 1 second, because this engine note is piped in. I mean, if you want good sound deadening and also want to be able to hear good engine sounds, you're going to have to pipe it in. Just listen to this. Sounds pretty good. Now, if you switch the driving modes to Eco or Comfort, the engine note is going to be slightly different. Listen to this. It's a little bit more natural, whereas when you're in Sport S or Sport S Plus mode, it's a little bit more electronic. That brings me up to my next point, the various driving modes. And when you're in Eco mode, it doesn't mean that it's slow. It just means that in the long run, you're going to be running in a more eco-friendly manner. So it's going to try and upshift to the higher gears as soon as possible so that you are more efficient. But when you put the hammer down, it does shift pretty aggressively. When you put yourself into Sport S or Sport S Plus mode, that means that it's going to hold on to the gears a little bit longer. The white and red bands is going to become more visible so you know where you are in the engine rev range. A couple of other things change when you put yourself into the Sport S and Sport S Plus mode. The steering damping, which is electrical steering, feels a little bit more damped. The F-Sport tuned adaptive dampers also stiffens up. It reduces the body roll a little bit. And even though I'm in the Sport S Plus mode, the ride quality, and even the fact that I have 20-inch wheels and tires that are run flats, this car still feels comfortable to drive in. The other great thing about this car is the interior design. I love the new look of Lexus because the interior is much more beautiful. And I saw this in the LC500 and the LC500H. There's a completely new design language in here that is more flowy, it's more integrated, and it's highly functional. If you look at the steering wheel, there's plenty of buttons in here, but the layout all makes sense. These Mickey Mouse ear dials that adjust your driving modes and also traction control and snow mode, it's up here. It looks a little bit funny, but it's functional. The gauge cluster, like I mentioned before, that moves left and right. It's a little gimmicky, but very functional. Then again, you have this beautiful 12.1-inch display. It is gigantic and everything is clear and legible. It is beautiful to look at. And then you have this accent that stretches from the left to the right sides of the car. It reminds me a little bit of the Maybach. Now that I've talked about the good, let's talk about the bad. Now, this car is huge. Now, that's not a knock against this car because all cars of this class is fairly large. They're all about 5,200 to 5,300 millimeters in the length direction and about 1,900 millimeters wide. Now that is a big car. Now what I don't like about this specific car is that it doesn't come with a panoramic view monitor. Now that is an $800 option that I believe should be standard in an $88,000 car. The panoramic view monitor basically allows you to get a 360-degree view when you're parking your car. If I can get a Nissan Altima for just around $30,000 that has the 360-degree view when I'm parking, then I should be able to get one in this really expensive full-size luxury sedan. So just be wary out there if you're buying this car secondhand or if you're thinking about picking this car up. Just make sure that you splurge for the extra $800 to get yourself the panoramic view monitor. And another thing I don't like about this car is the fact that the heated and ventilated seats and heated steering wheel controls is buried within the infotainment system. There's no simple button that you could press on the dash that I can turn on or off those features. Now fortunately, the system is smart enough to sense temperature so that it'll turn on those features on and off on its own when you get into the car. That part is nice, but at some point your palms are going to get a little sweaty, your butt's going to get a little hot. You want to turn those things off, and to do that you have to use this super silly trackpad and dig yourself through the sub-menus and turn those features off. Which brings me to the ugly of this car, this trackpad. This trackpad is horrendous. I hate it. It's absolutely ridiculous to use. The problem with a trackpad is all about choice and having too many choices at the same time. If I can think of an analogy, think of it like Scrabble. In the beginning of the game, you have 7 tiles to choose from to make a word. And if you don't have the right tiles, you can exchange it. So hopefully you can make a word with the new set of tiles. Simple decisions. Can I do it or I can't do it? Now think of that Scrabble game as if you have 20 tiles. It requires more brain power for you to kind of process that information. What words can I make out of all of these possibilities? And that's the problem with these infotainment systems, is that it gives you too many choices that when you're driving, especially when you're driving, it becomes really hard to choose, where do I go from here? With this trackpad system, it takes away the limitation from going left, right, forwards and backwards that's found in some simpler infotainment systems like Mazda's or BMW's iDrive. Given that this is a trackpad, you can go in all directions kind of like a mouse, so the choices is plentiful. There's columns on the left hand side, there's columns on the right, there's buttons, there's stations to choose from, so there's just too many things to choose from that when I'm driving I'm just completely distracted by this infotainment system. In the end, the Lexus LS500 is a fantastic car, and there's a huge feature set in this car. I didn't even talk about the lane keep assist, all the driver assists, the pre-collision detection, the automatic high beams, the dual panoramic sunroof, the amazing stereo system, the power seats that's adjustable in almost infinite ways with thigh support that unfolds. And it may not have the most power even with its 416 horsepower engine, but given that this F Sport model is priced at $88,000, this might be the best bang for your buck in terms of luxury full-size sedans. So what did you think about the good, the bad, and the ugly of the Lexus LS500 F Sport all-wheel drive? Do you agree? Do you disagree with me? Please let me know in the comments below. If you liked this video, if you enjoyed it, if you learned something from it, please consider giving it a like, hitting that subscribe button, and also hitting that notification bell so you can get notified anytime we make a new video. There's a lot of stuff going on in the Shifting Lanes channel. We do reviews of new cars just like this one. We also have project cars, and we also attend a lot of unique driving events. So if you're interested in watching any of that, please consider giving us a subscribe. There's a lot of videos on the internet, and you decided to watch this video. So for that, I thank you very much. My name is Hanson, and I'll see you next time.